a high-quality knowledge podcast for hitchhikers traveling the galaxy. This is Lab 42.
You know, for today's deep dive, I want to start with something a bit unusual. A receipt.
A receipt, like an actual receipt.
Literally. It's a shopping list from 2022. A huge defense contract signed between Poland and South Korea. And, I mean, usually these things are kind of dry.
Right. Standard inventory maintenance.
Yeah.
A few jets here, a few tanks there.
Yeah.
Keeping the lights on.
Exactly. But this, get a load of these numbers. 1,000 K2 Black Panther tanks.
Wow.
672 K9 self-propelled howitzers. And 288 K2-39 Chunmoo rocket launchers.
That is just a staggering amount of hardware. I mean, to put that in context for you, 1,000 tanks, that's more than the active tank fleets of Germany, France, and the UK combined.
It's insane. It doesn't feel like a purchase order. It feels like they're getting ready for an alien invasion or something. But here's the twist, and this is what really hooked me.
Okay.
This isn't just a shopping spree. The analysts we're looking at argue that this is a strategic rebellion.
Rebellion is a strong word, but yeah, the sources really back that up. We're not just seeing a transfer of metal here.
It feels like they're swapping out their entire operating system for war.
They are. The research calls this the new middle power doctrine. And to really get why Poland and a bunch of other countries in Southeast Asia are buying into this, you have to understand the very specific, very scary corner they've been backed into.
Okay, so let's unpack middle power first. It sounds a little like a backhanded compliment, you know?
Doesn't it? Like, you're okay, but you're not a superpower. But in geopolitical terms, it's really just a weight class. These are strong, regionally influential nations. They're just not the U.S. or China.
The middle class of geopolitics.
Precisely. And they have this unique security problem. For the last 30 years or so, the thinking was pretty simple.
Yeah.
If things go really wrong, you call Washington.
The U.S. security umbrella.
It was the ultimate insurance policy. But, you know, the sources are pointing out a pretty harsh reality, that umbrella is looking a little leaky, or at least it's not guaranteed forever.
And at the exact same time, you have Russia and China, what the texts call revisionist powers, actively trying to redraw the map.
So you're stuck. You've got existential threats at your doorstep, but you don't have infinite money. You can't just print cash and build 10 aircraft carriers like the U.S. Navy.
A survival problem with a budget.
That's it. So our mission for this deep dive is to explore how K-Defense, the South Korean defense industry, is solving that equation. They're exporting more than just hardware. They're exporting a whole new operating system for survival.
I love that framing. It's not just a gun, it's a grammar. So let's start where the boots hit the mud, on land. Because the sources call this the return of the god of war.
Yes. And this is where we see the biggest break from Western military thinking. I mean, if you look at the last 30 years, especially since the Gulf War, Western doctrine was obsessed with one thing.
Air power, shock and awe.
Air power supremacy, exactly. The theory was if you control the sky, the ground war is just a formality. You send in your jets, drop some smart bombs, and the enemy just scatters.
Yeah.
It's clean, it's surgical.
And because everyone was so sure that was the future of war, what happened to good old-fashioned artillery?
It got gutted. European nations just slashed their heavy artillery forces. They saw these big cannons as, relics from World War I. Why have a huge howitzer when you have a drone with a Hellfire missile?
And then February 2022 happened.
The invasion of Ukraine. And it just completely shattered that clean war illusion. The sources describe it not as a high-tech operation, but as a brutal industrial war of attrition.
The stats here are hard to wrap my head around. In the early stages, Russia was firing 60,000 artillery shells per day. Is that right?
No typo. 60,000. That's a level of fire that most Western logisticians, they couldn't even imagine handling. Even now, they're still firing around 10,000 a day.
And Ukraine.
Even with all the Western aid, their peak was maybe 7,000. And when the aid slowed down, that dropped to 2,000.
That's a 5-to-1 disadvantage, sometimes 10-to-1. You're just getting pounded into the dirt.
And here's the stat that really keeps military planners up at night. Roughly 80% of the casualties in Ukraine are from artillery and rockets.
Not from tanks. Not from infantry fighting.
Nope. It's indirect fire. The war is being decided by who can rain down the most explosives on a mapped grid.
So the god of war, as Stalin called artillery, is back. And this is where South Korea comes in. Because while Europe was scrapping its cannons,
They never stopped. And the reason is simple geography. They've been staring at North Korea for 70 years, which has one of the densest artillery concentrations in human history.
Yeah.
Seoul is in range.
So they knew air power alone wasn't going to cut it.
You can't fly enough sorties to kill 10,000 cannons in an hour. You have to counter mass with mass.
Okay, but if the answer is just more guns, why go to Korea? The sources really emphasize it's not just the volume, it's something called network artillery.
That's the key differentiator. It's an entire ecosystem. You see, in the old days, artillery was slow. A scout calls it in, someone does math on a map, they aim the gun.
Yeah.
That takes minutes.
And in modern war, if you shoot, enemy radar tracks the shell back and shoots you in seconds.
Exactly. Shoot and scoot. So the Korean doctrine automates the whole thing. It starts with sensors. Take the K2 Black Panther tank. We think of a tank as a brawler, right?
Yeah, big armor, big gun, goes forward, breaks things.
It does that. But in this doctrine, it's also a forward sensor. It spots a target, and that data instantly goes to the brain, the C4I command and control system.
Command control, communications, computers, and intelligence.
Right. And the brain instantly figures out which unit is in the best spot to fire. It might be a K9 howitzer 10 miles away. It might be a Chunmoo rocket launcher. The system just finds the most efficient kill.
And there's this radar system, too, the Arthur K.
The counter-battery radar. It tracks incoming enemy shells while they're still in the air, and it does the math in reverse to pinpoint exactly where that shot came from.
Like reverse engineering a bullet to find the sniper.
In real time. So before the enemy shell even lands, your K9s are already turning their turrets to fire back. That whole loop, from detection to return fire, it takes just seconds.
And that's what Poland bought. Not just cannons, but this entire NATO Eastern Front standard. A realization that you can't just wait for air support that might not come.
You need massive, networked firepower that you control, right there on the ground. It's a huge shift.
From waiting for the cavalry to being the cavalry. Okay, so that's the ground. But we can't ignore the sky. And this is where the sources get really interesting, talking about the curse of readiness.
It's a fascinating paradox. We all know the F-35, right? The Lightning II.
The iPhone of jets, 5th-gen stealth, the gold standard, everybody wants one.
It's the dream plane. But the analysis suggests that for a middle power, having an all F-35 Air Force might actually make you weaker.
Weaker? How? That sounds totally backwards.
It all comes down to the boring, unsexy reality of operating costs.
Those spreadsheets.
The spreadsheets. Sure, buying an F-35 is, what, over $100 million? But the real killer is the gas bill, the maintenance.
I'm looking at a chart here from the GAO, the U.S. Government Accountability Office. It says the F-35 costs about $36,000 per flight hour.
$36,000 for 60 minutes in the air.
So a 2-hour training mission just burned the price of a luxury car.
Exactly. Now, compare that to the South Korean alternative, the F-A-50. It's a light combat aircraft. Its operating cost is around $5,000 an hour.
So quick math, that's like 7 to 1. You can fly 7 F-A-50s for the price of one F-35.
And that is what leads to the curse of readiness. Because the F-35 is so expensive, commanders are terrified of the budget, so they keep the planes on the ground.
They don't fly them.
They don't fly them enough. The data shows even U.S. pilots are struggling. Some reports say they're only getting 10, maybe 12 hours of flight time a month.
And how much do they need to actually be any good?
For true combat proficiency, you need 15 to 20 hours, minimum. So you end up with the best plane in the world, flown by a pilot who is effectively rusty because the country can't afford the training.
That makes perfect sense. It's like owning a Ferrari but keeping it in the garage because you can't afford the insurance. You never learn how to drive it fast.
Perfect analogy. And if you get in a race with a guy in a tricked-out Honda Civic who drives it every single day, you might just lose.
So what's the solution? The sources call it the high-low mix.
Right. It's a survival strategy. The idea is you don't try to have an all-Ferrari fleet. You buy a few F-35s, that's your high asset. You save those for day one of the war to kick down the door.
And for everything else?
You use the low asset, the F-A-50, for border patrols, for close air support, and crucially for training. Because it's so much cheaper, your pilots get their 20 hours a month, they stay sharp.
So the F-A-50 isn't replacing the F-35, it's saving it.
It's making the whole Air Force sustainable. And we're seeing this play out. Poland, again, they sent their old Soviet MiGs to Ukraine, left a huge hole. They bought F-A-50s to fill that gap, fast.
And it's not just in Europe. The Philippines used them in combat, right, during the Marawi siege.
Yeah, back in 2017 against ISIS-affiliated rebels. They didn't need a stealth fighter. They needed a jet that could fly low and drop a bomb precisely on one building. The F-A-50s did that perfectly.
It leads to a phrase in the text I liked, the democratization of air power.
It's a powerful idea. For decades, if you weren't a rich country, your Air Force was basically symbolic. K-Defense is saying, here's a jet that gives you 80% of an F-16's capability for a fraction of the cost. It gives middle powers a real lethal Air Force that won't bankrupt them.
Okay, we've covered the mud and the clouds. Let's go to the water. The sea. And the strategy here has a very spiky name, the hedgehog strategy.
This is a response to a very specific threat, mostly in the South China Sea.
Right. The situation there is incredibly tense. The sources talk about China's gray zone strategy. Can you break that down?
It's designed to be vague. It's a strategy to gain territory without ever firing a shot that starts a full-scale war. They call it salami slicing.
Taking it piece by piece.
Exactly. China can't just send a warship to bombard a Philippine island. That's an act of war. The U.S. Navy shows up.
Yeah.
So instead, they send fishing boats.
Just fishing boats.
A maritime militia. Hundreds of big steel-hulled fishing boats that just park themselves in contested waters. Then come the Coast Guard ships, which are huge, and they use water cannons.
So if you're the Philippines or Indonesia, you're stuck. You can't fire a missile at a fishing boat, but if you do nothing, you lose your territory.
And you definitely can't win a head-to-head naval battle. It's a heavyweight against a toddler. So what do?
You become a hedgehog.
You become a hedgehog. The A2AD concept, anti-accessory denial. The goal isn't to win a glorious battle. It's to make yourself so painful to swallow that the predator just decides it's not worth the trouble.
You don't have to be a lion. You just need really sharp spikes.
And K-Defense is selling those spikes. The sources break them into two types: invisible and visible.
Let's start with invisible.
Submarines. The sources point to Indonesia getting the Nagapasa-class subs with technology transfer from South Korea.
Why are subs such a game changer for a middle power?
Because the asymmetric advantage is huge. A single, quiet submarine lurking somewhere underwater forces an enemy to change their entire fleet's movement. They have to devote massive resources just to find that one boat.
It's the monster in the closet. You know it might be there, so you can't move freely.
It creates a no-go zone in your waters. It's pure deterrence.
Okay, so that's the invisible spike. What's the visible one?
Frigates, like the Jose Rizal class in the Philippines. Their role isn't to hide, it's to be seen.
So they're out there policing.
Exactly. They protect fishing rights, they stand up to that gray zone bullying. When a foreign Coast Guard ship tries to push your fishermen around, having a modern frigate show up sends a very different message. It says, this is our water.
So K-Defense is selling the whole hedgehog kit. Submarines to scare the big Navy, and frigates to deal with the bullies.
That's it. It provides the tools to say, you might be bigger, but if you come in here, you're going to bleed.
This is all really coming together. We started with a shopping list of tanks, but we've ended up with a survival manual.
That's the perfect way to put it. If we synthesize everything, land, air, and sea, a really coherent pattern emerges.
Let's recap it. On land, the K doctrine says, build a networked artillery system that can stop a mass invasion on its own.
The God of War approach, high volume, high speed.
In the air, don't go broke chasing stealth. Use a high-low mix so your pilots can actually afford to train and fight.
A sustainable air force.
And on the sea, don't try to outmuscle the giant. Be a hedgehog. Use asymmetric tools to deny them access.
It's a comprehensive doctrine. And what's so fascinating is that South Korea developed all of this out of pure necessity. They've been living next to nuclear-armed neighbors for 70 years. Now they're just packaging that hard-earned anxiety and exporting it.
It's like they've productized their own survival trauma. Hey, do you also live next to a giant, scary neighbor? We have a solution for that.
It's a dark way to put it, but yes, that is the sales pitch. And this brings us to a final, maybe provocative thought.
What does this all mean for the bigger picture, for the global order?
Well, think about it. For decades, the standard was the U.S. standard. You bought American gear, you adopted American doctrine.
The expensive, high-tech, air power, heavy way of war, a rich man's war.
Exactly. But now we're seeing the export of a totally different doctrine. If Poland establishes a Korean doctrine on NATO's eastern flank and Southeast Asian nations adopt this hedgehog model, are we seeing the end of the one-size-fits-all military standard?
That is a huge question. We might be entering an era where middle powers aren't just following the leader anymore.
They're writing their own rules for survival.
And they're using Korean ink to write them. What a fascinating shift. It's certainly changed how I look at a tank or a jet. It's not just metal, it's a mindset. Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
That's all for today's episode of Lab 42. If you enjoyed this story of impossible engineering, leave us a review. Safe travels, hitchhikers. See you in the next galaxy.